5G rolled out and everybody got sick. The television called it COVID. That's the fog of war that we're dealing with. Making matters worse are the vaccines and other toxins that are being pumped into the environment. We want to talk about the modern weapons of war that we're facing. We're going to be talking about the intelligence that's coming from the front lines. You better pay attention, take notes, because this is serious, and what's happening to activists right now is going to be rolled out nationwide and to a city near you. Obviously, the cell towers are an obvious weapon in disguise, irradiating the environment around you, creating an unnatural magnetic field in your environment. But it doesn't stop there. The smart meters have weaponized the electricity in people's homes. The electrical grid has become weaponized. Pay attention to this video. When this lady touches her phone, which is plugged in, it looks like she's being electrocuted. We're getting reports that dirty electricity is being pumped in through the electrical grid, and attacks are coming in through the wiring. Everything that's plugged into the electrical grid creates an electrical field of dirty electricity, and electronics are especially bad. Cell phones, computers that are plugged in are pumping out a huge electrical field, which can cause palpitations, which can cause other types of symptoms. The ground is so electrified because of all of the grounding. Everybody's pumping their dirty electricity into the ground, and it runs around like a current. And essentially we're getting reports that it's irradiating back from the ground and affecting people while they sleep. This is why we recommend that people shield under their beds if you've been experiencing extreme fatigue when you wake up all day. That's essentially an EMF attack coming from underground. We recommend people shield using sheet metal or Faraday cage materials. You may have to use multiple layers because shielding gets fatigued. It gets saturated with electrons and no longer does what it's meant to do. So you're going to have to be a scientist when it comes to your shielding, especially from underground. And we recommend Faraday type shielding essentially in all directions, especially facing cell towers, radio towers, television towers, or other transmitters in your local area. So you're going to have to scope what's going on around you in order to figure out where this is coming from. But essentially EMF weakens the immune system, causes all sorts of flu-like symptoms. We're also getting reports that a total Faraday cage from the top down can have a negative feedback loop type of effect. We don't recommend doing a full Faraday cage, but all sides of your workspace, of your bedroom or your bed, headboards, sideboards, underneath. Leave the top open, but you're going to have to experiment to see what works for you. We know that attacks are coming in from satellites or weather balloons, depending if you're flat earther or round earther, but expect attacks coming in from all directions, not just rogue electricity, but targeted attacks. We're getting lots of reports to that effect. So overshielding can have a negative effect. We don't recommend aluminum at all. Not foil, not wire mesh. If you're going to use a Faraday cage, use steel or something a little less conductive, and have the mesh be at least or a maximum of 2 millimeters, preferably 1 millimeter or less between the gaps. We're getting reports of germ warfare from the vaccinated. They're shedding something, spike proteins, and perhaps some kind of Alzheimer's protein as well. If you've experienced the brain fog, we recommend the NAC. We don't recommend NAC every day because it may have side effects. It's used as medication for bronchitis, so it dries out the tissues And so we don't recommend it more than once every couple of days, to be quite honest. But NAC cuts the brain fog, works very well for other COVID-related exposures. And COVID is really an umbrella term for all of the eugenics programs that are happening right now in this fog of war. We recommend that people stay well hydrated, as water may help in this EMF poisoning that's happening worldwide. We also would recommend that people detox from heavy metals, use baking soda as a way to mitigate inflammation effects from either germ warfare or EMF poisoning. We recommend baking soda 30 minutes before you have breakfast, otherwise it's going to counteract the acids of whatever you drink or eat. The idea is to raise your pH. Acidosis is a huge factor in cancers and many other diseases. Many people are aware of that. Get the best kind of baking soda. Don't necessarily get the Arm & Hammer baking soda. We're also getting lots of reports of ethylene oxide being found everywhere. They're using it as a quote-unquote disinfectant. We know that it causes cancer and probably other diseases. We recommend that people don't use packaged foods, industrial foods, as much as possible. Just about anything that's ready to eat is dosed with ethylene oxide. TV dinners, sandwiches, Lunchables, you name it. And so this contributes to the fog of war of symptoms that people are experiencing. Going back to Faraday cages and shielding, windows are a huge source of RF leakage. RF leakage is a phenom kind of like light from a light bulb. Essentially, that's what we're dealing with. Wireless radiation is like light. It's on the EMF spectrum. And so RF leakage is like street lights coming in from the outside. Of course, street lights and everything in the smart cities has been weaponized. We recommend that people start thinking about shielding, personal shielding on top of their urban warfare gear. You're going to want to shield the midsection, the loins, the stomach area, etc. A breastplate, a helmet. Protect your feet because you're going to get attacks. You're going to get zapped from underground. Some people have already felt this, but you'll feel it soon. So protect your feet, protect your loins, protect your chest. We almost recommend making a flak jacket out of Faraday materials. Again, a heavy, non-conductive metal like steel is probably best. Not that it's not conductive, but less conductive than perhaps aluminum or copper or some of the other things. You're going to want to experiment with nickel, whatever you can find out there. So beware of electricity. We know that a huge upgrade is coming January 5th in America. We don't know about other places in the world, but AT&T and Verizon and many others are going to roll out a C-Spectrum 5G band around 4 gigahertz. And this is rolling out nationwide, supposedly January 5th. So we expect there to be a huge new wave starting January 5th. Prepare for that scenario because it's coming. Remember that there's no privacy online whatsoever. None. No VPN, no encryption will stop the information from leaking from whatever source. So don't talk about things that you shouldn't be talking about. The first rule of Fight Club is to not talk about Fight Club. Obviously, we're getting reports, and this might be a little more robust than some people can handle, but we're getting reports that they've deployed synthetic telepathy and synthetic mind snooping technology. Chances are that the system knows what you're thinking in real time. And so you're going to have to play a perfect chess game out there. People wonder, how do you fight back against Skynet? How do you fight back against a system that can forecast the future like the weather? In a sense, you have to be as perfect as you can be. There's no more room for mistakes out there. Do the best you can, considering what we're up against. Eventually, people are going to realize that the nightmare on television is never going to end unless people end it 1776 style. That's what the Second Amendment is all about. That's the final check and balance. Not every country has access to that type of instrument, if you will. But essentially, revolutions were fought with much less. And essentially, there are lessons in history to be learned, like the French Revolution, the storming of the Bastille, the guillotines, and the like. And so, where there's a will, there's a way. People will find a way to survive this genocide, but that's essentially what it is. We're looking at a genocide. Obviously, the vaccines are making it worse, and it's adding to the fog of war. We're not sure exactly what these vaccinated people are shedding, but essentially they're electromagnetic on top of everything else, and so they may be zapping you as much as everything else these days. They may act like some type of capacitor that zaps the unvaccinated as they walk by. We're not going to get into the physics of how the graphene is working in people, but essentially you should beware of your surroundings and essentially treat the world as if it's not the year 2021, but something like the year 3021. That technology is much more advanced than you might think it is, and that nothing is impossible, essentially, in this day and age. Don't start thinking about technology in terms of what you see at the Radio Shack or the Best Buy or the Walmart or whatever, because that is essentially tier 2 technology. It has nothing to do with what's being deployed out there today. But we know that a major upgrade is coming January 5th. Prepare for that. Beware of the electrical grid. And that includes all wiring, all extension cables, Ethernet cables, anything that carries a current, anything that's plugged into the socket, especially if you've got a smart meter that can essentially direct energy flows. That's the real purpose of the smart meter. It's not just to snoop, and it's not just to emit microbursts of radiation, but essentially to direct energy attacks coming from the electrical grid that's inside your home, the wiring. So they can flux electrical fields in bedrooms, in your kitchen, wherever you go. Don't expect an EMF meter to help you discover the weaponized EMF that is attacking you, the military-grade EMF. Don't expect shungite or magic rocks to save you from a tidal wave of EMF, and many of these rocks and stones are found to be radioactive. Punishment in disguise. Don't expect a USB stick to save you, because it's not happening. More radiation is not going to help in this type of situation. So don't think a jammer is going to help. But if you can experiment, let us know what you find. But we don't recommend adding more radiation to your environment with one of these USB sticks or any other type of jammer or neutralizer and the like. Stick to hardcore physics, Faraday cages, shielding, and the like. And essentially, that's only going to be a band-aid considering what's going to happen next. But your shielding strategies are going to have to evolve with the environment. Expect them to work and then to not work as the shielding material gets saturated or as they change frequencies to better penetrate the material that you're using. And so that's it for now. In terms of the modern day weapons of war, there's much more to talk about, but that's certainly a basic 101 rundown of the situation from the front lines, from the trenches, from activists. This is the latest intel. Take it seriously because it's accurate. And as far as we've seen, nobody's really reporting on this. And so you'll be the best prepared of all the activists out there. Like and share, get this information out there. Feel free to mirror this content. This is Stranger Than Fiction News, and if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.